Mantras of our Lord Sri Aurobindo. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says there is power within that knows beyond our knowings. We are greater than our thoughts, and sometimes earth unveils that vision here. With always our love and blessing, says our Lord Sri Aurobindo. Sri Aurobindo's Savitri, Book 1, Canto 4, The Secret Knowledge. Our souls can visit in great lonely hours, still regions of imperishable light, all seeing eagle peaks of silent power and moon flame, oceans of swift, fathomless bliss, and calm immensities of spirit space. Words of our Divine Mother, taken from the compilations of the works of our Divine Mother, book The Signature of Truth, topic The Psychic Presence, page 44. Our Divine Mother says, with regard to the evolution upwards, it is more correct to speak of the psychic presence than the psychic being. For it is the psychic presence which, little by little, becomes the psychic being. In each evolving form, there is this presence, but it is not individualized. It is something which is capable of growth and follows the moment of the evolution. It is not a descent of the involution from above. It is formed progressively around the spark of the divine consciousness, which is meant to be the center of a growing being, which becomes the psychic being when it is at last individualized. Our Divine Mother says, it is this spark that is permanent and gathers round itself all sorts of elements for the formation of that individuality. The true psychic being is formed only when the psychic personality is fully grown, fully built up round the eternal divine spark. It attains its culmination, its total fulfillment, if and when it unites with a being or personality from above. Below the human level, there is ordinarily hardly any individual formation. There is only this presence, more or less. But When the growth of the body round the spark of the divine consciousness, humanity began upon the earth, certain human organisms became, in the course of this progressive growth, sufficiently perfected, and by their opening and receptivity, allowed a junction with certain beings descending from above. This gave rise to a kind of divine humanity, what may be called a race of the elite. If only they had remained by themselves, these people would have continued as a race unique and superhuman. Indeed, many races have made claims to be that. The Aryan, the Semitic, and the Japanese have all in turn considered themselves the chosen race. But in fact, there has been a general leveling of humanity, a lot of intermixture. For there arose the necessity of prolongation of the superior race, which drove it to intermix with the rest of humanity, with animal humanity, that is to say. Thus, its value was degraded and led to the great fall which is spoken of in the world's scriptures, the coming out of paradise, the end of golden age. Indeed, it was a loss from the point of view of consciousness, but not from that of material strength, since it was a tremendous gain to ordinary humanity. There were certainly some beings who had a very strong will not to mix, who resented losing their superiority, and it is just this that is the real origin of race pride, race exclusiveness, and a special caste distinction like that cherished in India. But at present, it cannot be said that there is any portion of mankind which is purely animal. All the races have been touched by the descent from above. All the races have been touched by the descent from above, and owing to the extensive intermixture, the result of the involution was more widely spread. Of course, one cannot say that every man has got a psychic being, just as one cannot refuse to grant it to every animal. Many animals that have lived near man have some beginnings of it, while so often one comes across people who do not seem to be anything else than brutes. Here too, there has been a good deal of leveling. But on the whole, the psychic is the true sense starts at the human stage. That is also why the Catholic religion declares that only man has a soul. In man alone, there is the possibility of the psychic being growing to its full stature, even so far as to be able in the end to join and unite with a descending being, a Godhead from above, says our Divine Mother.
सर्वेश्वराय सर्वपतये सर्वसन्तराय अरविन्दाय नमः अरविन्दाय नमः.
Next topic from page 73, Vital Conversion, Rebirth and Personal Survival. Our Divine Mother says it is very important that the vital should agree to change. It must learn to accept conversion. The vital is not in itself anything to be decreed. In fact, all energy, dynamism, push comes from it. Without it, You may be calm and wise and detached, and you will be absolutely immobile and uncreative. The body would be inert like a stone without the force infused into it by the vital. If the vital is left out, you would be able to realize nothing. But like a spirited horse, it is liable to be refractory and therefore requires good control. You have to keep your reins tight and your whip ready in order to keep the powerful beast in check. Of course, once the vital has consented to be transformed, there is no need either for the tight reins or the ready whip. You proceed smoothly towards the goal, leaping lightly over every obstacle in the way. Otherwise, the vital will either stumble over the barriers or fight shy of jumping them. It is no use thinking that all would have been well if there had been no hurdles at all. They are a part of the game. And if they are not faced and jumped in this life on earth, you will have to surmount 100 times greater ones on other planes and in other lives. Our Divine Mother says, the best thing is to make up your mind once for all and train your vital to run the race here while you are in the body, and if possible, win it. You are sure to win, provided your physical mind reforms itself and helps the vital to change instead of playing the role of a robber who holds down his victim while his accomplice makes a haul of the victim's property. Our Divine Mother says, the condition of your being after death depends very much on whether the vital has been converted here or not. If you are only a medley of unorganized impulses, then at death, when the consciousness withdraws into the background, the different personalities in you fall apart, rushing hither and thither to seek their own suitable environments. One part may enter into another person who has an affinity for it. Another may enter an animal, while that which has been alive to the Divine Presence may remain attached to the central psychic being. But if you are fully organized and converted into a single individual, bent on reaching the goal of evolution, then you will be conscious after death and preserve a continuity. Our Divine Mother says, as to rebirth, it must be confessed that no rule holds good for all cases. Some people are reborn almost immediately. It most often happens with parents that a part of them gets assimilated into their children if the latter are very much attached to them. Some people, however, take centuries and even thousands of years to be reincarnated. They wait for the necessary conditions to mature, which will provide them with a suitable milieu. If one is yogically conscious, he can actually prepare the body of his next birth. Before the body is born, he shapes and molds it so that it is he who is the true maker of it, while the parents of the new child are only the adventitious, purely physical agents. Our Divine Mother says, I must remark here in passing that there is a common misconception about rebirth. People believe that it is they who are reincarnated. Yet, this is a palpable error, though it is true that parts of their being are amalgamated with others and so act through new bodies. The whole being is not reborn because of the simple fact that which they evidently mean by this self is not a real individualized entity but their exterior personality, the personality composed of the outward name and form. Hence, it is wrong to say that A is reborn as B. A is personally, organically distinct from B and cannot be said to have reincarnated as B. You would be rightly only if you said that the same line of consciousness uses both A and B as instruments of its manifestation. For what does remain constant is the psychic being, which is not the outward personality at all, but something deep within, something which is not the exterior name and form. You want to know if all men retain their identities after the dissolutions of their bodies? Well, it depends. The ordinary mass of men are so closely identified with their bodies that nothing of them survives when the physical disintegrates. Not that absolutely nothing survives. The vital, mental stuff always remains, but it is not identical with the physical personality. What survives has not the clear impress of the exterior personality because the later was content to remain a jumble of impulses and desires, a temporary organic unity constituted by the cohesion and coordination of bodily functions. And when these functions cease their pseudo unity, also naturally comes to an end. Only if there has been a mental discipline imposed on the different parts and they have been made to subserve a common mental idea can there be some sort of genuine individuality which retains the memory of its earthly life and so survives consciously. The artist, the philosopher, and other developed persons who have organized, individualized to a certain extent, converted their vital being and can be said to survive because they have brought into their exterior consciousness some shadow of the psychic entity which is immortal by its very nature and whose aim is to progressively build up the being around the central divine will, says our divine mother. Next subtopic, reincarnation, memory of past lives. Our divine mother says to understand rightly the problem of what is popularly called reincarnation, we must perceive that there are two factors in it which requires consideration. First, there is the line of divine consciousness which seeks to manifest from above and upholds a certain series of formations peculiar to itself in the universe, which is its field of manifestation. Secondly, there is the psychic consciousness which climbs from below, the seed of the divine, developing through time till it meets the force from above and takes the impress of the supramental truth. This psychic consciousness is the inner being of a man, the material from which his true soul or jiva can be fashioned when, in response to its aspiration, the supramental descends to give it a consistent personality. The exterior being of man is a perishable formation out of the stuff of universal nature, mental, vital, physical, and is due to the complex interplay of all kinds of forces. The psychic absorbs the essence, as it were, of the experiences of the various formations behind which it stands. But not being in constant contact with them, It does not retain the memory of their lives in their totality to which it supplies the background. Hence, by merely contacting the psychic, one cannot have the recollection of all the past lives. What commonly goes by the name of such recollection is mostly either deliberate imposture or a fabrication out of a few spasmodic hints received from within. Many people claim to remember their animal lives as well. They say that they were such and such a monkey living in this or that part of the globe. But if anything is certain, it is that the monkey has no contact whatever with the psychic consciousness, so transmits not one jot of his experience to it. The impression of the exterior monkey nature vanish with the crumbling of his animal body. To pretend to a knowledge of them is to betray the grossest ignorance of the actual facts of the problem under consideration. Even with regard to human lives, it is only when the psychic has come to the fore that it carries and preserves definite memories, but certainly not at all of the details of life unless it is constantly in front and one with the exterior being. For, as a rule, the physical mind and the physical vital dissolve with the death of the organism. They disintegrate and return to the universal nature. Nothing remains of the experiences. Not until they have become united with the psychic, so that there are not only two halves but a single consciousness, the whole nature unified around the central divine will. And this centralized being is connected up with the divine line of consciousness, which is above. Not until this happens can one receive the knowledge belonging to that consciousness, becomes aware of the entire series of forms and lives which were upheld by it as its own successive means of gradual self expression. Before this is done, it is meaningless to sneak off one's past births and their various impediments. This precious oneself is just the present impermanent exterior nature which has absolutely nothing to do with the several other behind formations behind which, as behind the present one, the true being stands. Only the supramental consciousness holds these birds as if strung on one single thread, and that alone can give the real knowledge of them all, says our Divine Mother.